Welcome back to the Bryan Devore Connection. I'm your host, Bryan Devore. The caregiver dilemma. There are a lot of caregivers out there right now, and most of them are unpaid. They're family members who are taking care of loved ones. A lot of times it's their parents, and they're not taking care of themselves emotionally, physically. So, here to talk to us today about the caregiver dilemma and his personal story is my friend Rick Topete with Silverado Care. Silverado is a wonderful memory care community, and Rick, you've been there for a long time, and you've been a longtime friend. Welcome back to our show today.
Well, Bryan, first and foremost, thank you for having me back. Thank you for what you do to educate communities. Yeah, the caregiver dilemma. There's a lot there that families are dealing with. I think, there's a lot of statistics out there. I think when you look at I think according to the National Alliance of Caregivers and AARP, I think 1 in 5 adults, which encompasses about 53 million Americans, are caregivers. And of that, about 26% are dealing with someone with Alzheimer's or dementia.
Wow, that's a lot.
It is a lot, and it can be overwhelming, and it can be time consuming, and the emotions that come with it are tedious. I mean, you think about it, you're trying to be there for your loved one, but there's such a sense of frustration that can come with it. And I think for me and for Silverado, we want to be able to guide families and help them through this process. And I think when you talk about what we do at Silverado, really the core philosophy is love is greater than fear. And look at that foundation, that encompasses courage, kindness, compassion, responsibility, to be able to bring forth and support these families when they're going through this challenge.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about Silverado in general, and then we're going to get into your personal story.
Yeah, you bet. So Silverado Memory Care, we're going on 28 years. It's a community environment. We have 27 locations around the country. And really, it's about supporting these families from the early onset to the late stage, but doing it with dignity, bringing a normalization to their day-to-day lives. I think for us, when that caregiver comes in, they're tired. Sometimes they're at their last breath of what they need to do. They're feeling a sense of hopelessness, guilt. Am I making the right decision? So I think for Silverado and our family environment is how can we support them? How can we guide them to better understand where their needs are? Because you have, spouse taking care of a spouse. Maybe they've been taking care of them for a long time. And now they're feeling this sense of overwhelmness. What do I do? How do I take care of myself? But yet also feeling that guilt. So we try to put together a plan where we put our arms around them to really support them all the way through and through.
That's amazing. They do a great job. I've been working with them and yourself for a while. You came to the show before and talked just about Silverado in general.
Yes.
And this was before your mother had passed away.
Yes. Yes, it's interesting, having been with the industry now going on 14 years. Shortly thereafter, you and I had met and spoke to Silverado. I had my own personal story. And it's interesting because all the things that I speak to and educate families on, I was going through. And basically what had happened is my mother was living on her own and she was starting to decline. And my family had reached out about like, well, maybe we need to take a closer look at things. Like, well, yeah, mom's doing great, till my mom wasn't. And then she had multiple falls. And then we had to realize what needed to be done next. So I brought her into our home, which was probably, when I look back on it, not the right thing to do, but I felt a sense of guilt that I've got to take care of her. I'm an only child. And the dynamics of emotions that I would speak to others, I felt personally over the next few months. And when you talk about caregiver guilt, caregiver burnout, I felt a sense of hopelessness. I felt frustrated. I found myself not wanting to engage in activities I normally would want to do, getting together with friends. I started to isolate. The other thing too, as I was dealing with physical stress, I had stomach issues. I wasn't sleeping. Every time I heard a noise downstairs, I'd run down because I thought my mother had another fall. And it really took its toll on me physically and emotionally. And I realized the other thing too, and I speak to this, is for caregivers and for me personally, I wasn't reaching out to family. I was shutting out my wife. I wasn't giving her. My wife who's amazing. I love her to death, Monica. I was like, well, no, I got this. I'm taking care of mom. I got it. And then I realized that I couldn't keep doing this. I needed to take a step back and put an arm around myself. And I think when my mother, had a couple more falls and we took her to a doctor, when they said she needs to go to a place, That's ultimately when we made the next move to put her somewhere that would be safe for her, but give us peace of mind. And I realized once I did that, it allowed me to come up for air, but also be a better son because I knew she was safe, but not having to deal with the day to day. And I think as a caregiver, you start to get lost in that because you say to yourself, well, I've got a responsibility and a duty to my mom or my loved one. But the thing about it, Brian, is I start to realize, and I say this to all the caregivers out there, what relationships are suffering? What toll is it taking on you? You think about those relationships with your family, your spouse, your employer. How is this impacting your own life? And I saw it firsthand, and I also saw it when I started to come up for air. I loved and adored my mother, but I think for many caregivers, you need to be able to do that. You need to be able to look at the resources that are available to you. And I think going through my own personal story really allowed me to see that with different eyes.
Yeah, for sure. You and I run a group together. We have a lot of fun with it.
Yes.
And by the way, we do have some cool socks together. We
Oh,
like
yes.
to have
Yes,
our
your
sock
socks.
game here.
Yes.
But I noticed, a little bit of a difference during that time. And you're a very strong guy.
Thanks, man.
And so I know that, for you, it's like, I'm good, I'm fine. But then physically, it was affecting you. Like you said, the stomach and everything else. And, obviously, kind of kept that to yourself. But you had the awareness to say, wait, hold on, this isn't working. But for a lot of people, they don't have that awareness. They're not taking care of themselves physically or emotionally. And it's a challenge. But you were able to kind of pull yourself out of that, and you saw the difference once you did.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I mean, I think one of the things that individuals need to do that are caregivers, even feeling that responsibility, because in a lot of ways, you can't fix the unfixable and you get frustrated, but you need to take a step back and look within your own self and go, what can I do? And I think when I started to do that and open myself up, I had family that said, we're here, we can help with medical appointments because there's such a maze with healthcare professionals and all that ties into this that there is options out there. And I think for me, what I try to share now with families is there's resources available to you. Looking at adult daycare centers, looking at that opportunity to take care of you, where you can take your loved one to a center once or twice a week. Alzheimer's Association, which is a huge resource. Silverado works very closely with them. They have support groups that are out there, support groups that are online, because a lot of families feel that apprehension. You can also physically go there and connect. So when you look at that, you look at the churches. My goal and focus is how do I support these families, whether or not they're ready to make a move now for their loved one, because it's emotional, it's a lot, because I went through it, or they're just looking at resources that are available. My goal is how do I help them? Because families are dealing with a lot. They're trying to figure things out. They're trying to sort through being there for their wives, being there for their spouses, being there for their kids and work. And you really need to be able to look within yourself. And like I said, when I went through it, it really allowed me to see what could be if I open myself up. So my word to everybody is, look at your neighbors, look at people that you can reach out to. And there's a couple of sites out there too. One is called caringbridge.org. It's a platform that's specifically designed to give health updates. You can post photos and do journaling, but it allows family to feel connected, family and friends. There's another one called lotsofhands.com, which allows it's another platform for caregiver tasks that can be sorted out with families. So there's resources that are out there for families to be able to utilize. And I think what I would say to all of them is you're not alone. You need to take it one day at a time. Families are, we are there at Silverado to support you, but there's a lot of resources out there that can guide you.
Yeah, for sure. And it's very important for people to have a plan. And I think that the earlier in the process, you can say, okay, I see where this is going. I need to create the plan. But people, they've never been down this road before, so they just get caught up in the daily and don't take a step back and say, okay, I see what's coming. I need to have a plan for how I'm going to take care of my loved one and myself.
Brian, that's a really good point. When you talk about putting a plan together, a healthcare plan, a legal plan, talking to that trust attorney, talking to that fiduciary, talking to the people that you have within your resources, or certainly reaching out to myself, of course, yourself, to what we can help guide them to those things. I think the other thing too is it's important for individuals in taking care of themselves to follow a balanced diet, because when you talk about your own health and well-being, there's a lot of factors there. When you talk about diabetes and you talk about heart disease, these are huge risk factors, especially for women, and they're predominantly the caregivers. Not to say men aren't either. So you really need to find ways to take care of your own health, balanced diet, and really allow yourself to be open to what can be as far as getting the care you need to help you better support your loved one. know you're not alone in this process.
Yeah, and that's the important thing is you're not alone. And a lot of times people feel like they're all alone. They have to do it themselves. They feel the guilt. You're an only child, but that
Yeah.
doesn't mean you had to be alone. You had your wife, but like you said, you started shutting people out because you got tunnel visioned into what you were doing, and that happens. I can see that people get that fight or flight type situation, but being able to take that step back, realizing there's a lot of great resources out there, the platforms, the people, organizations like Silverado, they can really help make a difference. So you don't have to go down this road alone.
Well, Brian, I'll say this to you. Silverado going on 28 years, blessings to going on 14. We want to do everything we can to support these families wherever they are in the process, to give them what they need so they feel that support all the way around. And really, whether or not we're the right fit now, we are here to guide them through this. And I say, as someone who went through it, I've come through it, I've learned a lot from it, and I think it's allowed me to be better at what I do from the heart. My mom will always be in my heart, but I want other caregivers to know, again, there is people that can guide you, support you, and we at Silverado will be honored to continue that journey and be there for you and put our arms around you and your loved one when the time comes.
Yeah, and this is why I appreciate the partnership that we have too.
Brian, I do too. I love you, buddy. You're a great guy, and what you do for the community, there's no words. We're blessed to have you in this
Yeah, I
community.
feel the same for you.
I do.
Silverado's information is on screen, so if you are listening on the podcast, it's in the caption, but on screen we have phone number, we have website. Give them a call. Go to their website. They have lots of great resources there. If you are caring for a loved one, take care of yourself, take care of them with those resources. Rick, once again, thank you very much for coming and sharing.
Thank you so much, Brian.
My pleasure.